The AJS-37 Viggen's role was that of a strike fighter. Its main design since day one has been focused on the defense of Sweden from the Soviet Union. At the peak of the Cold War, the threat of a Soviet invasion was real. Tensions were high on both sides of the curtain, and a peaceful future seemed bleak. If the Soviet Union were to invade Sweden, it would consist of a combined amphibious assault through the Baltic Sea, with large numbers of Soviet tanks backed up by the Soviet Air Force. Sweden was prepared to defend against such threat, with a large coastal defense system consisting of large coastal batteries, anti-aircraft guns, and large underground bunkers chained together. The role of the AJS-37 if the Cold War went hot would be to support the defense and to strike Soviet forces before they reached the shoreline. To attack the Soviet ships, the Viggen needed a long reach to hit Soviet destroyers and assault ships. To accomplish this task, the Viggen was equipped with medium-range anti-ship cruise missiles, including the RB-04E and the RB-15F. The RB-04E was developed to release from the Viggen and would dive to within 10 meters of the sea and skim across the ocean surface towards its target. The radar seeker head on the missile tip would automatically guide to the pre-designated target and could strike out to 30 kilometers. Its bigger brother, the RB-15F, was a more advanced version of it, with the ability to select targets independently and would have an increased range of 70 kilometers, giving the Viggen the element of surprise and avoiding radar contact by Soviet ships. The Viggen also had the capability of other guided missiles, such as the RB-75, which was essentially the Swedish designation of the US-produced AGM-65 Maverick that was given to the Air Force by the US. This missile, as most of you are familiar with, was a fire-and-forget guided missile that could be launched at both sea and land targets. This missile could be aimed with the ER-13 collimator sight and can be fired within 20 kilometers of the target. Generally, this missile would be unfavorable to attack Soviet ships, as it would bring the Viggen dangerously close to the ship's defenses. Additionally, the Viggen also had the capability to carry the BK-90 Mjolnir munitions dispenser, named after the god Thor's hammer. This dispenser, developed in the late 80s and deployed in the early 90s, would be carried after the later upgrade to the Viggen, but wouldn't have been around in the Cold War era. This guided munition would be released from the Viggen and glide down to the target, being guided by INS and release a mix of HE and anti-tank air-bursting submunitions over the target for devastating effect. These BK-90 dispensers are still being carried by the modern-day Gripen. Aside from guided munitions, the Viggen also came equipped with various dumb weapons, including the ARAC M70B rocket pods that are capable of carrying 6 135mm rockets in each pod. The rocket pods could be equipped with both high explosives and armored-piercing rockets, and were famous for their thick black smoke plume that they produced when firing. The Viggen also had the ability to load the ACAN 30mm gun pod that gave the AJS-37 the capability to strafe, since the aircraft was not equipped with an internal cannon. And if the Viggen was tasked with ground pounding the old-fashioned way, it was able to carry the M71 120kg general-purpose bomb that could be rack-mounted on a pylon with 4 additional bombs. Although the Viggen was a strike aircraft at heart, it also had the capability to defend itself. Equipped with the RB-24J, or as we Americans call it, the Sidewinder, it could ward off enemy fighters easily. The RB-24J was a heat-seeking missile that was used for close-range engagements. Unfortunately, the Viggen couldn't use its ground radar to lock onto air targets, so the AJS-37 has no radar-guided missiles. For defenses, the Viggen could carry a wing-mounted countermeasure dispenser pod that releases both chaff and flares for missile defenses, and an ECM pod that could be used for electronic warfare. Keep in mind that all weapons listed here are for the AJS-37 and not the JA-37 interceptor aircraft. The JA-37 is a whole nother beast and carries a whole different payload. I really hope Leatherneck is open for suggestions because the JA-37 would be an awesome addition to DCS. Well, that about wraps it up for today, guys. I hope you guys are still enjoying the series, and stay tuned tomorrow when the final episode is released.